Mark's key turned in the lock at 11 p.m., 3 days earlier than expected. The Seattle deal had closed faster than anticipated, and all he wanted was to collapse into bed beside Emily. Their brownstone was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator. He set down his luggage, noticing Emily's heels by the door, the expensive ones she only wore for special occasions. "Em, I'm home early," he called out, loosening his tie. Emily emerged from the bedroom in her robe, hair slightly disheveled, mascara smudged. She looked startled, then something else flickered across her face. Defiance. "Mark, you're back." She crossed her arms, leaning against the doorframe. "We need to talk." He smiled, exhausted but happy to see her. "Can it wait until morning? I'm beat." "No." Her voice was flat. "I was with David last night." The name hung in the air like smoke. David, her ex-boyfriend from college, the one who'd texted her occasionally, the one she had assured Mark was just an old friend. Mark stood frozen, his carry-on bag still in his hand. "What do you mean, with him?" Emily's jaw tightened. "I mean exactly what you think I mean. We had dinner, we went back to his apartment. Things happened." She shrugged with practiced casualness, but her hands trembled slightly. "I'm not going to lie to you. You deserve to know." Most men would have erupted, shouted, thrown something. Mark felt the rage building in his chest like a pressure cooker, but years of negotiating million-dollar contracts had taught him control. His face remained eerily calm as he set down his bag. "I see. And you're telling me this because?" "Because I'm done pretending." Emily's voice cracked slightly. "We've been drifting apart for months. You're always traveling, I'm always alone. Maybe we rushed into this marriage. Maybe we're not right for each other anymore." Mark nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. He walked past her into his home office, and she heard the click of the filing cabinet. When he emerged, he held a manila folder. "Before you make any decisions," Mark said, his voice steady, "there's something you need to see." Emily's hands shook as she took the folder. The leather of the sofa felt cold beneath her legs as she sat down, Mark standing a few feet away, watching her with those unreadable eyes. She opened it. The document was titled in bold letters, "Marital Commitment and Financial Responsibility Agreement." Her breath caught. She remembered this, sort of, 8 months ago, after that terrible fight about Mark's work schedule and her night out with friends that had lasted until 3 a.m., they'd been on the brink. Mark had suggested counseling. Emily had agreed, desperate to save what they had. During one session, their therapist, Dr. Mitchell, had mentioned commitment contracts as a tool some couples used. Mark had seemed enthusiastic about the idea, creating clear boundaries, clear consequences. Emily had been skeptical, but willing. "I don't remember signing this," she whispered, though even as she said it, she knew she was lying. She remembered Mark bringing papers home, saying it was just a formality to show we're both serious. She'd signed while on a conference call for work, barely glancing at it. "Page 4, Mark said quietly. Section 7B. Emily flipped through, her heart hammering. The language was dense, legal. Then her eyes found it. In the event that either party engages in sexual infidelity outside the marriage, the offending party agrees to compensate the injured party in the sum of $90,000. $90,000 for emotional distress, breach of trust, and financial damages resulting from the betrayal. Payment shall be due within 30 days, of confirmed infidelity. The room spun. This can't be real. This isn't legally binding. Mark pulled out his phone, tapped a few times, and showed her the screen. "I had our attorney review it. I had you review it. You just didn't read it. There's your signature, Emily. Right there, notarized by Patricia Caldwell on March 15th. You spoke with her for 10 minutes. She confirmed you understood you were signing a financial agreement." Emily's mouth dried. She vaguely remembered that day.
A woman had come to their house, asked her a few questions. Emily had been distracted, irritated that Mark was making such a big deal out of a symbolic gesture. "I didn't think," her voice trailed off. "You never thought you'd cheat." Mark's tone wasn't angry, it was worse. It was disappointed. Or, "You never thought there would be consequences." Emily's mind raced. $90,000. That was nearly her entire savings account, money she'd been setting aside for years. "Mark, please, I made a mistake. One mistake. You can't seriously expect—" "One mistake?" Mark's composure finally cracked, his voice rising. "You planned this, Emily. You got dressed up, you went to dinner, you went back to his place. Those weren't accidents. Those were choices."
Emily spent the next 3 days in a fog. Mark had moved into the guest room. They passed each other in the kitchen like strangers, the manila folder sitting on the dining room table like a landmine neither wanted to touch. She'd called David frantic. "Did you know about this? Did you know Mark would—" "Know about what?" David had sounded confused. "Em, you said you were separated. You said you were filing for divorce." Her stomach had dropped. I might have exaggerated." The line went quiet. "You lied to me? Jesus, Emily." The call ended. She'd lied to everyone, she realized. To David about her marriage status, to Mark about where her loyalties lay, to herself about what she really wanted. Now, sitting across from her best friend Melissa at their favorite wine bar, Emily finally let herself break down. "He's serious, Mel. He actually expects me to pay him $90,000. She drained her glass. "Who does that? Who plans for their spouse to cheat?" Melissa, a family law paralegal, had been quietly listening. "Someone who's been burned before. Has Mark been cheated on in past relationships?" Emily paused. She'd never asked. Mark rarely talked about his ex-girlfriend, Jessica, just that it had ended badly. "I need you to be real with me," Melissa said, leaning forward. "Did you know what you were signing?" I skimmed it. I thought it was just, I don't know, a symbolic thing, a way to make him feel secure. But you knew there were financial terms." Emily nodded miserably. "Then legally, you might be screwed," Melissa sighed. "If it was properly notarized, if you were of sound mind, if there was no coercion, Emily, a contract is a contract, especially one involving marital assets and clear breach terms." "I'd have to liquidate everything. My retirement account, the money my grandmother left me. That money was supposed to be for our future. Maybe a down payment on a bigger house. Maybe for kids someday." "Did you think about that before you slept with David?" The words stung because they were true. Emily had thought about David for months. The way he texted her, the way he made her feel young and spontaneous again. Mark was stable, successful, reliable, and somewhere along the way, she'd mistaken stability for boredom. That night, Emily went home to find Mark in the kitchen cooking pasta. The domestic scene felt surreal. Can we talk?" she asked quietly. Mark didn't look up from the pot. "If you're going to ask me to forgive the debt, the answer is no." "I was going to ask you to forgive me."
Mark finally turned to face her, his expression worn. He looked like he'd aged 5 years and 3 days. "Do you even understand what you've done?" Emily felt tears burning her eyes. "I hurt you. I broke your trust. I know that." "It's more than that." Mark turned off the stove, the pasta forgotten. "Do you remember our wedding night?" She nodded, confused by the change in direction. "We stayed up until 3 a.m. in that hotel room, and you told me about your parents. How your dad cheated on your mom when you were 12. How you watched your mother crumble. How you swore you'd never be like him, never inflict that pain on someone you loved." Emily's throat tightened. She'd forgotten she'd told him that. "I told you about Jessica that night," Mark continued, his voice rough. "How I came home early from a work trip, just like I did 3 days ago, and found her with someone else. How she laughed when I confronted her, said I was too boring, too predictable, that I deserved it for neglecting her. Mark, I promised myself I'd never be in that position again, Never give someone the power to destroy me like that." He laughed bitterly. "So I did what I do best. I planned. I protected myself. That contract wasn't about money, Emily. It was about knowing that if it happened again, I wouldn't be the only one who lost something." Emily sank into a chair, her legs unable to support her. "I didn't remember. About Jessica. I'm so sorry." "Sorry doesn't change anything." Mark ran a hand through his hair. "The contract has a clause. Section 9. Did you read that far?" She shook her head. "It says that if the offending party can provide evidence of genuine remorse and commits to couples therapy for a minimum of 6 months, the financial penalty can be reduced by half, $45,000 instead of $90,000. Hope flickered in Emily's chest. "I'll do it, whatever it takes. Therapy, counseling, anything." "I'm not finished," Mark's jaw tightened. "It also says that the injured party, me, has to agree to participate, has to agree that the marriage is worth saving." "And," Emily's voice was barely a whisper, "do you think it is?" Mark was silent for a long moment, staring at the cooling pot of pasta on the stove. "I don't know. I loved you so much, Em. Past tense. Loved. Because the woman I loved wouldn't have done this. Wouldn't have looked me in the eye and casually mentioned sleeping with her ex like she was talking about the weather." "I was scared," Emily admitted, tears streaming down her face now. "Scared of how much I'd messed up, so I pretended it didn't matter, like if I acted casual it would hurt less. It hurt more."
2 weeks later, Emily sat in Dr. Mitchell's office, alone. Mark had agreed to one thing. She could have time to decide whether to fight for the marriage or walk away. "If you walk away," Mark had said, "you still owe the $90,000, but you'll be free. We'll file for divorce, split everything else 50-50 like the prenup states, and move on. And if I stay, then you pay $45,000, we do therapy twice a week for 6 months, and we see if there's anything left to save. But Emily," his voice had hardened, "if you stay, you're all in. No contact with David. No girls' nights that end at 3 a.m. with me wondering where you are. Complete transparency. Phone passwords, calendar access, everything." "That sounds like prison," she'd whispered. "That's what rebuilding trust looks like. If you can't handle it, leave now." Now, Dr. Mitchell was watching her carefully. "What do you want, Emily?" "I want to not be the villain in this story," Emily said, her voice breaking. "I want to go back in time and make a different choice. But you can't. So what do you want moving forward?" Emily thought about the brownstone, the way Mark made coffee every morning, exactly how she liked it, the way he'd planned a surprise party for her 30th birthday, tracking down friends she hadn't spoken to in years, the way he'd held her when her grandmother died, taking a week off work just to be there. She thought about David, the excitement that had worn off after 2 hours in his apartment, the way he'd looked at her when she'd left, not with love, but with a satisfied smirk, like he'd won a prize. "I want Mark," she said finally. "I want my marriage. But I don't know if wanting it is enough." Dr. Mitchell nodded. "Then let's talk about why you cheated. And I want you to be brutally honest, with me and with yourself." The next session was joint. Mark arrived 10 minutes early, Emily exactly on time. They sat on opposite ends of the couch. "Emily's been doing individual work," Dr. Mitchell began. "She's identified some patterns. Emily, do you want to share?" Emily took a shaky breath. "I've always been terrified of being abandoned. When my dad left, I internalized this belief that I wasn't enough to make someone stay. So with Mark, every time he traveled, every time he was focused on work, I interpreted that as him not caring, as him leaving, even though he was coming back." Mark's expression softened slightly. "Instead of communicating that fear, I pulled away first. I told myself that if I cared less, it would hurt less when he inevitably left." She looked at Mark, tears streaming down her face.
David wasn't about passion or love. He was about proving to myself that I had options, that I wasn't trapped, that I wasn't my mother, desperate and destroyed. But in doing that, Dr. Mitchell said gently, "You became your father." Emily nodded, sobbing now. I know I did." Mark was quiet for a long time. Then, "I should have seen it, the signs that you were struggling." "That's not an excuse for what I did," Emily said quickly. "No, but I wasn't innocent either. I buried myself in work because it was easier than dealing with the problems in our marriage." Mark turned to face her fully. The contract, the control, the paranoia about being cheated on again, that wasn't fair to you either. I never gave you the chance to be different from Jessica. 3 months later, Emily made her first payment, $22,500. The second installment would be due in 30 days. It hurt. Every dollar felt like a reminder of her betrayal. But Mark had agreed to couples therapy, had agreed to try. They were learning to communicate, learning that love wasn't about grand gestures or perfect moments, but about choosing each other every day, even when, especially when, it was hard. One evening, curled up on the couch watching a movie, Mark's hand found hers. "I'm still angry," he said quietly, "some days more than others." "I know. I'm still angry at myself. But I'm starting to remember why I fell in love with you." Emily looked up at him, hope and fear warring in her chest. "Yeah?" "Yeah." Mark kissed her forehead. "We're not fixed yet. We might never be the same as we were before." "Maybe that's okay," Emily whispered. "Maybe we can be better." The $90,000, now $45,000, wasn't just a penalty. It was a scar, a permanent reminder of how close they'd come to losing everything. But scars also meant healing. And healing, they learned, was possible if both people were willing to do the work.